Welcome everyone to the Planetary Awakening Summit. I'm Jeannie Manchester, and we're here invoking the divine feminine in challenging times. And I have a special guest, David Newman, today. Hi, David.
Hi, Jeannie. Hi, everyone. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much for coming. As many of us know, David is a renowned mantra artist. He's a beautiful chanter and spreads love through his music all over the world. And David, I would love for you to just begin telling us, how did you come into this practice of mantra? What drew you in?
Sure. I always say it came into me.
Yes.
It actually all started with me a long time ago. When I was about 12 years old. This was back in the 1970s. There was a form of meditation that I guess you could say was very popular at that point. It's still called TM, or Transcendental Meditation. It was taught by a yogi named Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
Yeah, big yogi.
Well, actually little.
Little guy.
Yeah, big.
Little guy, big energy, yes.
Right. And so when I was 12, my parents took my brother and I to TM for the whole family to get initiated and receive a mantra. And so we all received a mantra. In that tradition, it's a secret mantra, and each person gets their own. And so I was given my first mantra at that time, and that's when I started working with a mantra and started meditating.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is pretty extraordinary news to me, because all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, that's what Abhinavagupta did in the 11th century in Kashmir, was initiate people at puberty.
Oh, wow.
And like, what a blessing to, I just had an interview with Manorma, and she had a similar situation where her mother took her to a yoga studio, and she met her guru and ended up studying Sanskrit, and that is pretty extraordinary. I mean, my kids were kind of the same thing. I had the impulse to have them initiated into Nilakanta meditation when they were not a little older than 13, but that's pretty rare for I don't know how old you are, but I mean, that's not, kind of the norm at 13 to be initiated.
What makes it kind of almost more interesting is that my parents weren't really into that sort of thing. My mother did have an interest in astrology, but they weren't practicing yoga or meditation or necessarily into that lifestyle. Interestingly enough, I should go back when I see my mom next and say, hey, what inspired you to take us?
Wow.
So,
Well,
yeah.
in my opinion, this is like the hand of grace. It's like it's part of destiny in a way, if you will. And that, part of this whole idea behind planetary awakening to me is that, we do have trajectory in life. We do have certain talents and gifts that need to come forward, and yet so much inhibits that for some of us. I grew up with alcoholism and have been, sort of battling that whatever you want to call that, inhibition or fear, or, yoga has helped me tremendously come into my voice and to trusting myself, and knowing that we all human beings have some sort of gift offering to make. So I see this like the hand of grace, like this incredible, whatever your mother felt was like intuitive, or that you had that kind of mantra dropped into you, is really quite profound. So that's beautiful.
I remember the first significant moment that I really felt the power, and although I really enjoyed meditating and did notice that it brought me into a space of not being so worried about everything that, like being stressed out about my homework and other things. But I do remember this incredible experience. I was meditating because once they gave us a mantra, we were asked to meditate for 20 minutes twice a day. And so I was meditating, and we had a fire in our home. It was our home was being painted, and they had left the paint cans in the garage, and they internally combusted, and the garage set on fire. And it happened while I was meditating one afternoon. And my mother came rushing down into the basement where I was and said, "The garage is on fire. We all have to get out of the house." And I remember coming out of my meditation and just kind of walking out of the house, peacefully, as opposed to being panicked. And that was one of those big moments in my life where I recognized the power of meditation.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. I love hearing these stories. Um, Not that you had a fire in your house, but so, I have been studying a similar style of meditation, a little bit more tantric influenced, although that's debatable as to whether Maharishi actually had some tantric influence. Um, but what I've noticed is the power of the mantra to actually move through these impediments inside of me and to release a lot of feelings of like I said earlier, challenge of feeling inhibited or shame or whatever might even be invisible to us as we move through life, but we feel maybe a little bit of sabotage or we can't quite get our offerings into the world. And I think what the mantras do is they're able to traverse the body mind in a way that the mind can release anxiety and fear. And I always say we get to occupy our full central channel. We get to really move these gifts into the world, and that's a lot of freedom. To feel uninhibited and to as you say, you just want to spread conscious light or conscious love. You say something like that in your bio, and to me, that mantra is a huge part of that clearing of the vehicle so that we can be in a space where we can receive and take in the nourishment of vibration, which is what you're spreading around through your music is just, kind of pure love in a way, like pure Shakti. I'm curious, what do you think about that?
I was just taking you in. Is there an inquiry here?
Well, I mean, I think that mantra has to do with planetary evolution. If we find that in our path, that mantras, I mean, growing up as I did in my 20s in Boulder at Richard Freeman's studio, he was chanting kind of more like Vedic chanting. Here and there, we had to kind of beg him to chant. But I remember when I first went into the studio, I thought, oh my God, what am I going into? Is this a cult? Like, what's going on in here? And that kind of fear arose in me. And then, 20 years later, I was chanting away. But I see now this infusion of mantra, certainly in the yoga world, everywhere. But you see mantras on signs. You go into a grocery store and you see, see mantra everywhere. So I'm curious what you think about our future as evolutionary beings in relationship to mantra. I mean, you must feel that, your music is so well received, and I don't know if that was always the case or if you had any inhibition around bringing this out into the world at a time when it wasn't as accepted, and now it's wildly accepted in many parts. Do you see that as an evolutionary impulse?
Absolutely. It is part of the awakening. We are so bombarded by conditioned thought forms through media and advertising and status quo ways that we can potentially be taught to be more identified or enslaved by our finite self. And so when we chant mantras, what it does is it aligns us with our infinite self, our soul, our spirit. And the more you get a taste of that, the more you want. You become thirsty for that spiritual truth, and the less bound you become by your own limitations and false ideas of self. And so mantras are vibrational by nature, and the beauty in a culture where we can be trained to be very cerebral and always lean toward logic and rationale and fully scientifically understanding something. Mantra opens us up to connecting with something that's beyond the rational mind, beyond logic. It's a recognition, it's a remembering, It's kind of like the awakening from spiritual amnesia, and it doesn't happen by like convincing us. It just simply the vibration reflects something back to us, which is inherent in who we are, and that's the power of it, is the vibration.
So have you seen in your own work with mantra an increase of, I know this is obvious, but joy, laughter, freedom, an increase of your capacities, your voice, your
Abs-
abilities?
Absolutely, and also the strength to move through the challenges more gracefully as well. When we're aligned, when we can see things from a wider angle lens, then we're not as crushed when things don't go our way, or like what we're going through right now with the pandemic. It, just The mantra avails us to seeing life as more of an opportunity, to grow, as opposed to seeing things as obstacles, and things of that nature. So it gives us a little bit more of a one-pointed connectedness, so that we're not pushing away certain things and inviting other things, but we're just able to stay present and open and allow life to guide us where it needs to guide us for our own, evolution and spiritual awakening. So the mantra keeps us on center, on path, so to speak. For me, it's always the transformation of moving from a place of love rather than fear. And what I find is, when you move from a place of love, you can grow through joy, or you can grow through pain. But the most important thing is there's movement, is that you're growing. And for me, that's the gift of the practice.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Yeah, it's not just increasing, which it will, increase. I always just say we're just able to occupy more of ourselves versus these memories and feelings of inhibition from the past or projecting into the future. We're really
Exactly. Right.
able
Just be
to,
present in the moment. Yeah.
yes, presence is so enormous. I grew up with alcoholism, which I think I mentioned, and really through this my internal mantra practice, I've really had to confront that demon of not being present. Even though I never drank, I never took on a substance. I've been a yogi since I was in my 20s, and I'm in my 50s. And yet all these years, I'm finally confronting, that shadowy part of shame and this inability to be in the moment. And the mantras are really helping me to be right here, right now, in discomfort, in the unknown. This is a really unprecedented time on the planet, and
Sure.
it's uncomfortable. It's not easy. We don't really know how this is going to change us in the future. And there's some beautiful things that are coming out of this. I'm having all these amazing conversations. I wake up to mantra every day. I might just put you on and hike up the mountain and chant along with you in the morning. I always wake up with some sort of mantra. And then I do my internal mantra as well. But mantras really do enliven us. They really do work. They really are these vibrational tools that I just see increasing. We're going to just see more and more mantra. I don't know how much in our lifetime, but I see more and more because it's effective. It works. It's not woo woo, and that's partly why I call this invoking the divine feminine, because I feel like, for lack of a better word, the feminine is this part of us that we could say is more receptive, is more kind of moon-like, even though it can be fierce. We have this ability to let it in, to allow for, to surrender to. And that's something that I've had to learn. I've had to learn to just let the mantra work on me versus, trying to be in control of things.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do think that your music is really just full of love. Whenever I'm live with you, which has been several times here in Boulder, my cousin and I always come to see you because we're like, he's the happy man. Like, let's go see him. Your music is really just full of love. And
Yeah, it's interesting because when I create music, it doesn't always start from that place. I always feel like I'm a miner. I go into the depths within myself, which includes all of it, and I like to, my commitment is to bring back something which amplifies love and something which affirms the beauty of life. I certainly could create music in different ways, but I feel there is so much, and this isn't necessarily a conscious choice. It just feels like more of my life's assignment is to bring forward music that is joyful and
Mhm.
expresses love, because there's a lack of that on the planet, and to me it's just it's a service that I think we all bring forward in different ways. And so for me is, you know if you're going through a challenge, and you're quarantined, and you could look out your window and you could choose to focus on anything, I say look at the flowers, look at, like, just to remind, that's my goal in my music, is just to remind others that there's beauty and that it's worthy of focusing on that beauty.
I love that because even if we're faking it till we make it, there's something there. Even Patanjali says that in the Yoga Sutras, like fake it till you make it. Turn in the direction of light, And I liked what you said earlier because you don't always start from that place, which is honest and authentic.
Authenticity, exactly. And yeah, that's, like I said, it's just my commitment in my music to reflect something back to help people remember that essential love. and
Mm,
and hopefully it helps. I find with mantra, I find, when you're in sort of a positive, balanced, centered place, it deepens that space. And when you're not, I find mantra is wonderful for, protecting you from your own mind. When that darkness, the shroud of darkness, kind of comes over you and swoops in, to me, you can use a metaphor like you're in the ocean and the waves are, really harsh and really strong. The mantra becomes like your life raft.
mm,
So in those moments, I have found that it's really wonderful to have the tool to be able to hold on to the mantra in a time when otherwise you may really get, kind of knocked over by the intensity of whatever's happening. And so, like what we're going through right now, is something that can just bring you through something in a graceful way without being unscathed, and also coming out of it on the other side, in a more expanded place, because although what I sing is all about bhakti yoga, which is the yoga of love and devotion, it also gives you that equanimity to be able to practice jnana yoga, which is the practice of self-inquiry. And I think in a time like what we're in right now with, I don't call it coronavirus, I call it karunavirus.
I love that.
The time to cultivate, karuna is a Sanskrit word for those of you who don't know, which means compassion. So, it's sort of a pause for us to cultivate more self-love and compassion. So I think, we've all had a lot of time to investigate ourselves more deeply during this time. And when you do that with a dose of self-love and acceptance, you can really learn a lot more about yourself, as opposed to approaching it with, judgment and being self-critical. So the jnana, the self-inquiry, and the love, the bhakti, they go hand in hand. And for me, they've always been a sort of an inherent match in my own journey.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting to see how being in kirtan has impacted me.
Mm.
I think especially because I have so much internal mantra going on too, that I just that when I'm in the space of kirtan, it's really really impactful. And I just wanted to share a little reflection because I had a real contraction with a friend, actually student, right before a walk concert here in Boulder, and um, I, had this like real disagreement, and it was very intense. And I went to the walk concert, and it was in this teeny little chicken coop over here on 63rd Street, and sat down with my husband, started chanting with Wah, And I turn around and the student walks in the door and she
Mhm.
sits right behind me. And I was like, oh man, like I just kind of need space. And oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
Sure.
And of course, Wa, in her magical way with her music, we chant and she's like, let's throw love bombs around the room, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
And she said, turn to the person behind you. And there I was faced with the student
Right.
having to share my love bombs. It was really cathartic. It was really beautiful. It was very healing, because when we hold on to these things inside, we don't flow in life. We just don't flow.
Yeah,
So
you're absolutely, that's a beautiful point. And for something to happen that spontaneous does demonstrate our own capacity. I always say bhakti practice, is an evolution. So something bothers you, you feel charged about a situation, or by a person, and maybe you start off on the practice of love, and it takes you a year to talk to that person. Then you keep on chanting and practicing your mantra. Then 6 months, and then a month, and then a couple weeks, and then a couple days, and then you learn to just let go like that. You go, I feel agitated, I feel upset, I feel angry, I feel jealous. And you go, okay, I feel it. You take a big in breath, you take an out breath, and you just let it move on. And that really is the evolution of these sort of binding negative patterns, is to keep remembering that they don't define us. They sort of come in, they show themselves, and that's fine, and that's part of being a human being. But we don't have to embrace them to the degree that we start to believe that they are who we are or define us by any means.
mm,
So I think you use the word flow, just traveling lighter in life and maintaining that sense of spirit fluidity, as opposed to being bogged down by those sort of coarse vibration, discordant and separative vibrations. That's.
yes, so it was such a beautiful moment. It was like, oh my God, the magic of this working on us in this
Right,
moment.
and to remember, that although Wah served as a conduit, as did her music, always the reflection is that, you can do that every moment of every day. Throw as you the term, throw a love bomb at somebody,
Mm,
and just breaking through the discomfort of not wanting to. No,
mm,
hold on. Um, yeah, that's a practice. But I find that over time, the knee-jerk reaction, which initially may be fear, and separation, that eventually your default does become uh, love, centering around love. That's where you keep coming back to more naturally, as opposed to its opposite.
mm. I just think that is the truth for me. It really has been. Um, so I'm curious, with an internal mantra that I do in deep silent meditation,
Yeah.
there's no dictionary meaning to the mantra in
There's a
Tibetan.
what meaning?
There's no dictionary meaning, so there's no English equivalency to an internal mantra that is given in puja, in special ceremony. With a qualified teacher, really, you have to go to mantra school for it, basically. But I also study all the goddesses of yoga, and of course understand that these different streams of consciousness have a particular resonance. Saraswati, for example, which you have much of her in you, right? This ability to move from the depths of you out through the vocal cords, really a gifted singer you are, and songwriter and musician. We could say that is associated with the throat chakra and Saraswati and Aim, right? The Bija mantra Aim.
Uh-huh.
But I guess my question is, I do teach from that perspective in that context. But when you're chanting kirtan, are you like, do you wake up in the morning and have like, I really want to do this mantra this morning? I mean, does your sadhana practice take on different shapes and colors? And, some people are like, do I chant Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha when I want a parking spot? And I'm like, maybe, but I think that has to come from a clarified internal space to actualize things out here. I don't want people to think of this as sort of a magical tool, even though they're potent, they're extraordinarily potent practices, we can kind of misuse them as well.
Did you want me to comment on that?
Yes, I'm curious what you think. Do you
Think,
use mantra in a certain way?
so what's the question? I just want to be clear so I can respond to.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I was just saying that, like, I'll use Aim
Uh-huh.
and tell the story of Saraswati in a class, and we'll work on the throat chakra and posture and chant and so forth as a means to really open up this area of the body,
Got it.
which seems potent to me.
Hmm.
At the same time, I know that an internal mantra has no dictionary meaning. So the associations we do sometimes can be dangerous, to think we're going to get this certain outcome if we do this. And yet we know that they're potent, right? They're shifting consciousness. So I'm curious, do you have an opinion on mantra and its efficacy and meaning?
Sure. Well, I've never approached mantra as a means of getting something. It's always been, for me, more oriented as a letting go, to allow the universe to speak through me, through love. My guru, spiritual guide, Neem Karoli Baba, always said that, the greatest city, the greatest attainment is just being surrendered to love. So I've never had an agenda with practicing mantra. I've never, whether it's dangerous or not, I've just never, sort of attuned myself to that aspect of it. Kirtan mantras are devotional. They're specifically oriented toward opening our heart and guiding us to get in touch with and express our devotion for something greater than our own ego. So that's how I've always approached the practice of kirtan. And, I like to keep it alive. I like to keep the practice juicy by just, just chanting, just deepening my practice to the degree that I really feel it as deeply as possible in my heart.
So that's
Quite simple. It's quite simple to me. It's nothing I, really think about that much. It's just my feedback mechanism for making sure my heart is in the right place and stays open.
That seems like a very pure way to utilize your practice. So I'm curious if you would like to offer a little mantra for us today. I think it'd be fun to hear you in your beautiful.
I brought my ukulele. So, do you have any favorites?
Oh my gosh. I was just listening to the beautiful, I'm forgetting the chant that you did where you organized all those people together for the Nepal earthquake.
Yeah.
That was just stunning. Oh my gosh. I was like, we gotta bring that back, because we're in need again of that mantra.
Om Tari Ture Swaha. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Off the tip of my tongue, I'd have to rehearse the chord structure.
Yeah, no, you can sing anything you wish. I think everyone will love whatever you bring.
Okay. Well, since this is your whole series, your summit is for the Divine Mother, planetary awakening of the goddess of the feminine. I'll do a little something. I'll just merge a couple pieces. I'll merge a chant to the Divine Mother, which is Jai Ma, victory to the Mother, with a song of mine called Shift. And so it will,
beautiful.
Yeah. Hear it okay?
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Jema, 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 Ma, Ma, I feel a shift from fear to love, the dream that we've dreamed of, a shift from suffering to joy, in a world we won't destroy. A shift in perspective in the collective, a shift in consciousness, a shift in direction and in perception. Do you feel like this? 'Cause I feel a shift. I feel a shift. Jema, 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 Jema. Jema, 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 Mama, Jema, 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 Jema.
Hmm. Oh, that was so sweet, so beautiful. Did you create that for these times?
That's a song that's on an album of mine called Love is Awake. It's a really special album. I made it, what year was it? 2000 and maybe, I think it was 2016 with Paul Simon's rhythm section. And it was a super fun album. And it was all about spiritual awakening
Mm.
specifically. And that song Shift is on it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
as you were chanting Jai Ma, Jai Ma, I was like, wow, I wonder what David really thinks about this idea of the invocation of the divine feminine in these times. I've been feeling it as a yoga student for years. And as a woman, especially, I've been feeling this very strong in my body. And I'm curious what you think. Are we getting closer? Are we moving towards an integration? And if so, what does that look like to you?
I believe we are, and so much of the hierarchy and the patriarchy and sort of I don't want to say a male-dominated world, but I would say a lack of reverence for the power of the feminine, I think is coming to life and is being illuminated. And there is a real sense of equality and integration between the masculine and the feminine coming forward, and so much of that is coming about as a result of exposing old ways of being that do repress the power of the feminine. And so as the feminine rises, I believe that there's going to be a very beautiful and fluid integration between the masculine and the feminine, and so much so that a lot of the younger generation with their gender fluidity is demonstrating to us that we're souls. We embody the masculine and the feminine, but for that unification to arise and to reveal itself in its fully blossomed state, it is important, for the reverence to the feminine and the power of the feminine to come forward. And in my world, that is happening for sure. I realized a long time ago that there was no path for me without the strong presence of the divine feminine, of the goddess. And, bhakti in itself is a lunar path. It's a feminine path in that sense. So I can't speak for everybody, but in my own estimation and perception of reality, I do see the reemergence of the feminine, and like I've used a few times, the reverence for the great power of the divine feminine. And I have I have a daughter, and she embodies the beauty of the feminine. I also get to witness her mother. That's Mira. We're not together anymore, but she's an extraordinary mother, and seeing a mother's love for her child and the power of that devotion and commitment and unconditionality, to me, that's the quintessence of love itself. So, if we can't embrace and follow that model, I think we're doomed as a species. My spiritual name is Durga Das, and Durga is the embodiment of the goddess, which means she who is unattainable. And to me, that's always meant that Durga, Divine Mother's love, is so infinitely spacious and all expressive that we can never we're always aspiring to love as unconditionally as she does. And so that's always my ideal, is just to keep loving more. I'm not of the opinion that we hit a place where we achieve the pinnacle of being a loving person. I find life challenges us in every situation and every day. I just put up a post on social media about some of the dissension that I've witnessed in spiritual communities in terms of how they're communicating to each other based upon different theories of COVID and different beliefs about the nature of it and so forth and so on. And my post was just, look, everybody is entitled to express themselves, and even if we vehemently disagree with somebody, just let's maintain compassion and understanding and communicate in loving ways. So I look at this situation we're in now, and believe me, there is lots of grist for the mill to self-reflect on our capacity to show up in a loving. That's why I call it the time of Karuna, because there's great challenges to shall I say, use this experience as a means to open our heart wider, not contract and close. That's my point.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I really feel that. I feel like the more we can chant, the more we can immerse in this, I call it a bubble bath of love, of vibration, of wholeness. And when we come out of that, we can serve each other better. We can hold karuna. We can hold compassion. I've seen it in myself. I've seen the other side too, but I'm getting better. I'm getting more moment by moment aware of my choice, which is really
practice. And that's the purpose of Sangha, is to reflect that back and remind each other. That's why we are in this together, for sure. And it's important to remember that when we get in that place. And what are we being told to do now? Self-isolate. And so it's important that we feel each other. Whether it's in situations like you've created, or I'm a strong believer, in prayer, in mantra, not just for the sake of our own individualized liberation, but to express our compassion in ways that are beyond the physical, beyond words, just, extending our loving care to our Sangha, to our family, to our community, to our loved ones, to the people that challenge us. And just, keeping the prayer wheel going, keeping ourselves purified through the regular practice.
That's so beautiful. And I really appreciate you as a man, as a Western man, imbibing that feminine essence. I feel it through your singing. I feel it through who you are. And
thanks for reminding me that I'm a Western man.
I think you're a Western man. And I don't, I've only studied a little bit of Neem Karoli Baba. Of course, he was so influential to so many kirtan artists.
Sure.
And he just looked like a very jolly man.
And fierce too.
And fierce too.
And I think that's an important thing to remember with the feminine energy. And that's what I love about the bhakti and the Indian spiritual tradition, is that there's very nurturing, forms of the divine feminine, and there's very, fierce warrior forms of the divine feminine too. And I think that's the beauty. It's, Neem Karoli Baba. I grew up Jewish. I call him like the ultimate Jewish mother. So, I get a lot of that energy from him. But in any event, yeah, I think it's important to remember that love is what you carry in your heart. It's what's inside of you. The expression can be nurturing and gentle, or fierce and very firm. It can come like a warm bath, or it can come like a lightning bolt, or like in Kali's case, a sword. So yes, I don't mean to digress. You're talking about Neem Karoli Baba. Yes, very jolly, also very fierce and transformative presence as well.
Which is, that is how consciousness works. My own experience has been very, very intense energy moving through me, very intense, confrontational, and then extraordinarily sweet, sublime, nurturing, gentle. So I like that you bring that forth, because the feminine is all of this. It's, as Sally Kempton said in our interview with her, she said, well, this virus is made of consciousness. Everything is made of consciousness. And so this virus, we could even say, is fierce, and fierce, and yet what kind of goodness are we going to come out from this? We have yet to kind of define or see,
and that goodness, I believe, is our collective choice. It's like in your life, you can take a situation and you can shrivel and contract, or you can take a situation, learn and grow from it. And take they're already, the environmental silver lining of this situation. I can also say, just the capacity to reinvestigate our lives. I think, so there are positives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm doing that every day, just kind of looking at myself closer and
Sure.
seeing where I need to show up more, and where I've been hiding, and so forth. It's a confrontational time. It's a beautiful time. It's uncomfortable and it's beautiful.
It's all of the above.
Yes.
As every moment is.
Yes, every moment.
Some more pronounced than others,
Yeah,
So,
I think with imbibing mantra, we can stand on what we call that ledge of freedom more often, so we can choose to turn in that direction of the flower, as you said earlier.
choose is for me is the right word.
Yeah.
In my own life,
Well, I am so delighted that you could spend some time with us and to share your beauty, your love, your goodness, how you show up for people through your voice, and share that gift of love through mantra. I'm wondering if you might close our time together with a mantra of your choice.
Absolutely. Let's see. I got one.
Okay, good.
Maybe appropriate.
Yay.
I always like to get my guitar in the picture. Okay. He Mahalakshmi, He Saraswati Devi, He Matakali, Jagatambi Jijima, Jagatambi Jijima, He Mahalakshmi, He Saraswati, He Matakali, Jagatambi Jijima, Jagatambi Jijima, He Ma Durga, He Ma Durga, He Ma Durga, Jagatambi Jijima, He Ma Durga, He Ma Durga, He Ma Durga, Jagatambi Jijima, He Mahalakshmi, He Saraswati Devi, He Matakali, Jagadambi Jijima, Jagadambi Jijima, He Mahalakshmi, He Saraswati, He Matakali, Jagadambi Jijima, Jagatambi Jiji Ma. Hey Ma Durga, Hey Ma Durga, Hey Ma Durga, Ma Jagatambi Jiji Ma. Hey Ma Durga, Hey Ma Durga, Hey Ma Durga, Jagatambi Jiji Ma. Jagatambi, Jagatambi, 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 Jagatambi Jiji Ma.
Hmm. David, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, just felt like I got a little private
Yay.
concert there from my heart. So I just want to thank you again for spending time with us. Any last words for our listeners?
Just keep your heart open no matter what. That's always my my
Hmm.
reminder. And
Yay.
embrace every situation as an opportunity to do so.
Thank you, David.
Eugene, namaste.
Namaste.